Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Eric today. Eric is a Bigfoot researcher from Ohio. He's had some interesting things happen in the Salt Fork area. And how's it going tonight, Eric?
It's going very well, bud. It's going really well. Weather's starting to calm down a little bit, getting out of the heat. So, yeah, signs of autumn are coming. So
I'm loving it. Before we get into the Salt Fork action, do you mind sharing with us a little bit about what got you into this whole wild Bigfoot adventure to begin with?
Yeah, it was it was the classic seeing Patty on the Patterson Gimlin, on In Search Of years and years ago, and always had that in the mind of the possibility. Even as a young kid, just why not? Never closed-minded on that. And then just growing up and being an avid hunter, avid tracker, spending a lot of time in the woods, but never had anything happen. But then it was right at the millennium. Right around that era, 2000, 2001, I was working for a grain handling company here in Ohio. And during crop season, their grain dryers, they would run them 24/7. And I would service those grain dryers. So it wasn't anything for me to roll up on a farm at, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I had happened to be at a seminar, though, me and a couple other guys from the company, way up in northeastern Ohio, up in Ashtabula. And we actually were on our way home from this I guess it was like a conference, whatever it was. And we were on a back road, and middle of the night, high beams are on. And I'm in the back passenger seat, and I've got my head up against the window, and I'm kind of just looking at the ditch line, like towards the front of the car. And in front of us, coming towards us, or we're coming up on it, it basically looked like a big brush pile is what it looked like. But as we got closer, it started to take shape. And then when we got right up on top of it, there was no mistaking of what this thing was. And we never slowed down, but what I saw of it was the left side, and it was squatting, and it had its arms on its knees, and it's in the ditch, just looking at us. And as we drove by it, I just it passed. Its head was like right eye level with me, and as we drove past it, obviously it went dark. But I turned and looked out the back window, and it's completely dark. And I turned back around. When I turned back around, the driver is actually rubbernecked, looking back at the window, the rear window, and he just looks at me and goes, "I don't know." And that was it. That was the only time we ever talked about it. And the only person I told was my dad at the time. And he kind of ran me through the gambit on a lot of stuff. Of the weather and fog and this and that, and how was the night, and just kind of ran me through a gambit a little bit. And at the end of it, he just told me, he said, "Look," he said, I believe what you're saying." He said, "You're the one that's going to have to deal with it." And so, and back then, I mean, if you talked about this, it was so taboo. So I just locked it away for many years. And now working in what I do, mechanical HVAC, I do large commercial, and me and my research partner, we kind of came up together in the field. But when I came to work at this particular company that he was at, when I first met him, um, you kind of carpool with each other when you're kind of working out of town. So he and I would meet up and be at about an hour drive each way to the job and back. So you talk, throughout the course of the job, and these jobs were anywhere 6 months to a year long projects. So we got to know each other and found out we had the same likes, dislikes, whatever. And finally, I was like, you know what, I'm going to tell him. I'm gonna see, and I was ready for the ridicule. I was ready for the ha ha. And I told him, and he just looked at me and he was like, well, let's go find him. So that's where it all really started. And that was roughly 14 years ago. So, and that's what threw us down this rabbit hole, and we haven't stopped.
Wow. So you've been going after it ever since.
Yeah, nonstop out in the field, though, actually in the field hardcore, actually what we consider research, has been roughly 14 years.
Okay.
So, yeah, before that, it was just kind of, once I had that first sighting years ago, I started reading more. I started trying to find information about the subject, but not really going out into the field. So it wasn't until after he and I had talked, and that's when we decided, okay, let's do this. But we didn't want to be like, we didn't want to have like any influences or anything like that, or we weren't into social media at the time. So we didn't know that there was actually a social media platform in this realm, or for this realm. And so we were out there just really just pounding and pounding, and growing on our own and making mistakes and finding out certain things work, certain things don't, and just blazing our own trail basically, with the subject. And for me, being like I said, an avid hunter and a tracker, that was really what I was focused on. I realized I needed to understand what it was that I was looking for first and foremost, and then how do I track it? I'm not tracking a human. I'm not tracking a known animal. How do I identify what I'm looking at? How do I identify a trackway, establishing a travel pattern, all these things? So that's what I really dove into, and we went everywhere. I mean, not just here in Ohio, but surrounding states, and yeah, we just kind of just went and kind of honed in on what each of us wanted to bring to the table. And on my end, that's what I wanted to figure out. That was my passion. I love tracking. So that's really what I dove into. And we finally um, we finally found like a research area what we consider, okay, this is our base. This is where we're going to dedicate time. And it happened to be at Salt Fork. Now, Salt Fork is kind of a mecca here in Ohio. Everybody, all the enthusiasts, the so-called researchers, whatever, everybody gravitates to Salt Fork eventually. They get there. Um, but we knew the areas that a lot of people were going, and a lot of people were just trail hiking. They'd go off 100 yards here or 100 yards there, and that was it. They weren't really getting in deep. And Salt Fork is just over 18,000 acres, and it's the largest state park in Ohio. And there's a few really remote areas in Salt Fork, and we knew, and I knew that you had to get in deep. You had to get in as far as you could, as remote as you could, and the nastiest stuff to get results. And so that's what we did. And that took us that took us about 3 years out in Salt Fork and just really pounding it and trying to find that one area, that one location in that park that would hold what we would believe, stuff showing sign of the subject. And we'd actually found it. And it was through interactions. We were getting the classic knocks through the days, very light vocalizations, not whoops, loud whoops, but little tiny chatter sounds. We had found here that they don't vocalize through the day unless you're really on top of them. It's mainly breaking twigs, breaking branches. They'll throw little stuff at you. They'll give you a little, and a little like you. I don't know if you've heard people talk about samurai chatter, but you'll get garbled up like very quick. Just different sounds, little light, subtle sounds that aren't known animal. So we knew that this area was where we needed to be. And so we fast forward. It took at that point then really to establish a trackway, to establish travel pattern. So what we did was we went through the park and we would establish a trackway of bipedal tracks, non-human. And we'd found these, and they were heading in the same direction throughout the whole park. And what we had found throughout a very long process, that they were traveling in a counterclockwise circumference of the park. And we average a guesstimation of roughly about 5 to 10 mile radius that they were traveling in a circle. We really honed in on one spot. That was our spot. And we started researching it really heavy and documenting things that we were finding, structures that we believe weren't Mother Nature and weren't human manipulation. We would record the data, anything from height to length to width to everything that you could measure on these sticks that were put together, documenting sticks being taken away, sticks being added to them throughout this whole area that we were researching. So, and then that in itself is what led me up to what I consider today to be my actual full-on visual sighting of the creature.
I find it fascinating that it took 3 whole years to analyze the state park. And you think listeners have to realize how big this place is. It's massive.
It is. It's a really large area. I've been in, I've been in bigger areas, obviously, but when I talk to people, especially like the newcomers coming up, don't think that this is going to happen overnight. You can go out and you can be off trail and you can be bushwhacking in and you can have something happen, sure. But I'm talking research and research and collecting data and getting the interactions where for a fact it's not known animal and it's not human, that you're dealing with something else. And in collecting all this data, it takes a long time to do. And I try to stress that to the ones that are up and coming into the field that, take your time, be extremely patient, because it's going to take a long time.
Do you have any advice for people that are like, I got this place next to me. It's a big state park or state forest. What are some best practices they might be able to do if they want to start going in there and they don't know where to start to try to analyze this place for where the Bigfoot places might be in it?
Learn, learn the area. Learn. So with tracking, I've learned topo maps through the years at a young age. Learn your topo maps, learn the terrain, learn the area, do your research on the area, understand the area, go back in history of the area, see what was there prior to the settlers. Go as far back as you possibly can to who was there. Learn the vegetation, learn the wildlife, learn the water sources. Once again, learn the elevation. The elevation will be a key factor in your research as you mature into your research and you get further into it. You're going to find elevation has a lot to do with their travel and with seasons. So, but that and don't think, human. I told a good friend of mine once that I told him, I said, get out of your own way, get out of your own head, because we were having a conversation. He was like, yeah, but I wouldn't. Yeah, but that's not what and that's not how and I finally, I looked at him and I said, stop. I said, stop thinking like a human. Stop, get out of your own way. They don't think like we do. They're very intelligent creatures, extremely intelligent, but they don't think like you and I. And you have to get out of your own way, clear your mind, relax yourself, stop thinking this isn't how I would do it, and just look at the landscape, read the landscape, walk the landscape, just clear it out of your head. You're not looking for Sasquatch. You're not out there looking for Sasquatch. You're looking for evidence. You're looking for data is what you're looking for. If you have the encounter, that's great. And eventually through time and your research, yes, you are wanting to capture it in its natural state and you want to be able to record it in its natural state. But just starting out and just learning, just relax, take your time, clear your mind, stop thinking as if they're going to move and do things the way that you would do it, because they're not. They're not at all. And once you're able to do that, and once you're able to get in there and just go, things will open up for you. You'll look at the area, you'll look at the woods in a totally different mindset, and things will start opening up for you.
When you look at, let's say you were looking at a map of an area for the first time, are there certain things that are going to jump out to you as potential areas that might be good to look into, maybe like geographic forms or different bodies of water?
Yeah, so what you're looking for is you're looking for deep caresses in the topo, deep channels, fingers that come out to points off of ridges that then drop down, and there's water below, a stream, a creek, maybe even a river. You're looking for areas like that. You're looking for areas that are extremely remote. You're looking at like here in Ohio. I think our highest elevation, maybe, and I'm pushing it, maybe 1,300 feet, maybe 1,300. So not very high in elevation, but you want to look at the highest elevation points as you can. Look for your fingers, look for your points coming off in very dense areas. Look for the water source around those areas. Look for your deep drop offs, your big channels cutting through, your big cuts, valleys in between ridge lines, things like that. That's what you want to concentrate on. And try to get as remote as you try to find those areas as remotely as possible.
Why is it important to find those ridges and those steep drop offs?
That's where they hold themselves.
Okay.
And on these ridges, that's where you're going to find, um, that's where you're going to find their natural. How do I explain this? Um, they don't when they're in these areas and when they're on top, they're going to take the high ground. Every single time, they're going to take the high ground. Most wild animals will take a high ground. Um, it's just an instinct for them. It's an instinct for us. You want to hold the high ground, and you want to be able to observe everything around you. And I found this not just, like I said, just here. I mean, in the Adirondacks, in the Ozarks, all up and down the Appalachia. We find these fingers, and we find these massive structures within them. So that's, to me, that's why that's why you find it there on these high points. They're very comfortable in these areas. They don't have to worry about, outsiders coming in. They don't have to hide. They're relaxed in their natural state in these areas.
You mentioned finding structures. Are there main things you look for that would differentiate it being a Bigfoot structure from a potential bushcraft?
I do, and I've done a lot of survival stuff as well as in building my own structures, things like that. You have to look at how much energy that you're putting into it, and if you're out there in the wilderness and you're surviving in the wilderness, how much energy are you going to spend building something, creating something? How much energy are you going to burn when you're eating vegetation? You're hunting, what wild game there is. You have to think of all of these things, and then I look at the area itself. Like, would somebody travel this far in just to make a TP structure? What's the possibility? I look at human, if there's has been any type of human activity in that area. I'm not just scouting, non-human bipedal prints or tracks. I'm looking at the natural game, natural wildlife. I'm looking for human tracks. I'm looking for everything, and I know I can rule out, those certain the human aspect, anyways, of no humans being in this area. And then you look at wind. You look at Mother Nature itself. How does in this area, what's it been like with Mother Nature? What are the storms like? What are the seasons like? Are they harsh winters in this area? Heavy snow load in this area? You look at all of that stuff. You look at the trees around a structure. Do these trees hold these style? Is it the same style tree that the structure is created out of the trees that are around you? Are these branches part of those trees? Are these trees large enough to hold these branches? Are they the size that will carry a branch the size that's in the structure? You look at all of these things to be able to rule out. Now, human manipulation to me is the hardest to rule out, because I do know certain guys that do travel in. They bushwhack very deep in, just to camp and and do survival videos and build structures. But once again, with tracking, I know if there's been human in this area. I know if there's been man and woman in this area. And when I quickly rule that out, there's no doubt that it's created by something else. So, and then you get into, then that follows up with, what is it and why is it being built? What's the purpose of it? And that in itself is a whole nother part of research that took us roughly 10 years to figure out. And it's just one certain thing. In certain structures, not all structures that we found, but certain structures that we have found, hold a navigational, um, data to it. Um, so we know now for a fact, because once we found it, actually my partner, once he found it and brought it to me and said, we need to take a look at this. Um, we found that certain structures held navigation to them. So we took it out of our area and we took it to 3 different states, two of which, the Ozarks and in Georgia, I believe, was the second state. Unknown locations to both of us, never been there before. Studied the maps, did our thing, went, actually was able to find a trackway in both states, was able to find what we believed and knew to be structures created by, something other than human or Mother Nature. We found certain structures then that held these navigational points and followed it strictly on just what the structures were telling us. And we were able to follow from one structure to another structure. We were able to turn. We were able to read the structure, turn, and navigate a different direction to another structure. And once we did that, we came back here, and that's when my partner told me, he was like, dude, we have to bring people in, and we have to show them that we can do this. And at the time, I was very close-chested with our research. I mean, I was I was lock and key with our research. And finally, we decided, okay, let's do this. So we contacted a few guys that we really trusted, and we brought them up, and they spent 4 days with us. And we went out. What we wanted to do was show them you can establish trackway, you can establish travel pattern, you can get in front of them prior to them coming through, and you can document it as they come through the area. And we did it for 3 days out in the bush and had interaction, and actually gathered some pretty amazing vocalization. No more than 30 yards from our camp, up above us on the ridge. So it was big for my partner and I. It was huge, because now we had individuals that we showed them you could do it, and it happened, and we got in front of them and they came through on us. So it was a huge breakthrough for our research.
That is incredible. Was that documented in any way?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is that available for the public in any way?
Yes, it is. It's actually on Sawdust Beast. It's a 4-part series.
Okay.
On Sawdust Beast. Yeah. So people, if they want to see it, you got to go back. I think it's been maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that when we did it. So you gotta scroll through, but yeah, it's on Sawdust Beast. So it's a 4-parter.
It sounds like it's very worth taking the time to go through that. If what you're talking about is all in that series, that's some good information for people to know. So
yeah,
definitely people should be checking that out. And that all happened within Salt Fork, you said?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. That is just so wild. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around, but I know it's a huge place. It's totally possible. Do you mind if we go into talking about the time in Salt Fork when you you had that very intense visual that you were referencing to before.
Sure, yeah. It's so this was 2015. Um, we went out to our area. Now, what made this day different than any other day? Normally, we would drive out, we get out of the truck, hit the ridge, go in, do our thing, come back out, get in the truck, and leave. This particular weekend, we had my wife and my partner's girlfriend at the time with us, and we were camping up at the campground. So they actually dropped us off that morning, and we go in that day. We get, which is also documented, and this would be on my partner's page, Facebook page, House of Enoch. Um, and you have to go once again scroll way back. But um, so we're getting. I had a little cam speaker, Bluetooth cam speaker, and I'm a huge fan of Jane Goodall. And a lot of my research is based off of how Jane does her stuff. And so, but what I did was I put low-lying silverback gorilla sounds on. I downloaded them on my phone, and one of them was an aggression call, basically like a challenge call. And we're making our way back into where we actually do our research, but we're already getting like things tossed. We're getting, things snapping, on the ridge beside us. And so I just stopped. We stopped for a second, and I told my partner, I said, I'm gonna play this sound. And I blast this, and immediately you get this crack, 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 snap. And then across from us, on the ridge across from us, you see this, I don't know, 5, 6 foot long by maybe 6 to 8 inches around, either a trunk of a tree or a huge branch of a tree come hurling off the ridge towards us. And so we're like, okay, all right. So we keep going back in, and we do our stuff. As we're coming back out, we're being parallel on top of the ridge. And we would, just, we don't act on sounds. We trained ourselves early on. Don't turn and look directly at what you hear. Don't acknowledge it at first. Just keep doing your thing. Just to try to ignore it as much as you can. Be conscious of it being there, but just act like it's no big deal. So we're coming back out. We're being parallel from top of the ridge. So we drop down onto the road, and once again, instead of getting in the truck and leaving, we walk the gravel road up to a bridge. Now, in this area, it's where we research on these three ridges. It's surrounded. I guess it'd be like the east side of it is surrounded with marshland. But what cuts through this marsh is like a channel. So we walk up the road to this bridge where this channel goes out into the marsh. We've got all of our gear stripped off. My partner's sitting on the guardrail with his back to the marsh, and he's facing me, and I'm facing him. And we're just talking, waiting for the girls to show up. And as we're talking, I just glance up. And when I glance up, I see this huge branch of this tree push straight up in the air. And I see this arm. And then this thing steps out. And he comes up full body. And we just lock eyes. And we're just staring at each other. Now, at this point, I freeze. My mind just, I go into a total lock. And I can't do anything. I can't do nothing but stare at this thing. I mean, we're locked in eye to eye. And he flares up, he flares out, his head goes back, his eyes go wide. Never showed any type of aggression, nothing like that. And I've told people in the past, he actually had a look of like, I just screwed up. Like, oh crap, they're not supposed to be here. He had just this dumbfounded look on his face. And we stood there and stared at each other for a few seconds. His body turned to the right. His head stayed with me. He went to take a step, and his head turned. And when he stepped down into the channel and disappeared. Now, at this point, my partner's still talking. He has no clue what's going on. And as soon as this thing disappeared, I take off running down the road. I'm wanting to get another vantage point of this thing. So I just take off running. And I can hear my partner behind me, and I can hear him like grabbing gear and stuff. And he doesn't, all he knows is we're running. That's all he knows. So I step into the marsh, and I'm 6'1", and when I stepped into the marsh, the top of the weeds came up to my chest. And what I saw of him was from the waist up. So very large. I mean, in another way I describe it to people is at that moment, if you was to take every human emotion that you possibly could and you ball it up as tight as an atom, and it explodes. And that's the feeling I felt. I could have dropped to the ground and literally just bawled like a baby. And but it was so much. It was so much coming back. It was from years ago, seeing what I saw, all the years of my partner and I, and all the research that we have done everywhere we had been. And I just came face to face with it. And I saw it. Broad daylight. There he is. And it's real. Everything that I knew, everything that all the data I was collecting, everything that I was tracking, where I knew in my heart, and I knew 100% it was non-human, I knew for a fact it was something other than that. I was tracking all these things, and there it was in front of me. And it was just, I went through a meltdown process is what I did. And people, you hear so many people, why didn't you take a picture? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you? And you have to be in the moment. You have to just be in the moment. You will go through a meltdown process. We're taught since we're as little as you can, as far back as you can remember, you're taught to identify. You're taught that this is a tree, this is grass, you're taught all of this. So when you see something like this, your mind goes through this meltdown process, and it's trying to collect everything that it possibly can to make sense of what it is that you're looking at. And so it's grabbing every detail that it possibly can, and your mind is ruling out everything so quickly to then just bam, it is what it is. And it's a Sasquatch, and they do exist. And yeah, so, and from there, man, it just, I mean, it set a fire in me, and has not went out since.
That's incredible. Has what you seen that day, or has anything ever come close to looking like what you saw yourself that day? Have you ever seen anything else, artist representation, anything like that?
One.
Yeah.
One. And I had a professional sketch artist sketch mine. And when she sent it to me, I cried. Yeah, I couldn't hold back the emotion because she was so, and it was over the phone. It was, she would send me little things like working on the nose, working on the mouth, working on the forehead, just certain things. And we hone in and hone in and hone in. And when she finally sent it to me, I broke down, and that was him. Um, and then one other, I was talking to a guy, and he sent me what he had seen. And he had actually had a sketch artist do his years and years ago. And what was odd though is mine, she did mine in black and white. There's no color to it. But when he sent me his, what I saw was a reddish brown, very leathered skin, dark complected. I put it as like a Middle Eastern type skin, as in like tight, um, no facial hair, um, except on the sides, but nothing in the front. Um, no hair on his chest, and very broad shouldered. Um, but when he sent me his picture, I was like, oh my God. And this is coming from Ohio, and his was, I I want to say maybe Texas or somewhere out in that area. And you hold them both side by side and look at them and look at the characteristics of both of them. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, this is a species. This is, yeah, we're looking at a species here.
Is that sketch drawing that you had done, is that available to see anywhere? Or is that kind of a private collection thing for you?
No, it's out there on my page,
Okay.
on my Facebook page. Yeah.
Gotcha. Seeing what you saw that day, dead on, you got a great look at it. Did that affect what you had thought about what Bigfoot was before then, or did it just?
Most of, yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely.
Okay.
No, 100%. Prior to it, it was a North American grade 8.
Okay.
100% couldn't change my mind. And when I saw it and I saw the human characteristics in it, there was no mistaking that. At that point, for me, anyways, my personal opinion is somewhere on the tree, we share DNA. There was too much in his face that just there's human, there's human characteristics. His eyes, the way he looked at me, just everything. The emotion, I mean, that he showed with the like, oh damn, like I just screwed up. Just there's too much there, and I changed my mindset on that very quickly.
That is, I mean, that's extremely interesting. And going off of that, you hear all these stories about hunters or people that they have the ability to try to take a shot, but they just can't because the way that it looks, it's just they can't tell exactly what it is. It's just
There's absolutely no way. And certain areas I carry my sidearm with me. But it's honestly, it's for cat and it's for bear. And and even then just a deterrent. It's the sound. I'm using it for the sound to get them backing off of me. Um, I could not, even if it was a situation where it was life threatening, I honestly, I don't know. I don't know if I could pull the trigger. I say that. I mean, I don't know. I've never been that close quarters with one, but right now, I mean, thinking of a situation like that, I still don't know if I could do it. I honestly don't know if I could, put one down. So, I've said that many times that, you don't have to drag a body out of the woods to prove the existence. You don't have to do it, and what's it going to do anyways? They're going to throw it on a slab, they're going to dissect it, and they're going to tell you what it eats. That doesn't tell you anything about the creature. It doesn't tell you anything about them. So for me, you don't have to drag a body out. You'll learn more being out there and documenting them and filming them in their natural environment of what they do versus dragging one out of the woods.
Like Jane Goodall would have done.
Yeah, like Jane Goodall.
So
exactly.
Are you thinking that it would just take really documented notes to prove it, or perhaps even like video evidence along with that? Or
yeah, it would take both.
Yeah,
it would most definitely take both. But I believe that now where I am and what I can do, what I've shown people I can do, I know I can do it. It takes time. It takes a very long time. I have a collection. I put very little out on social media. If you have to go into great detail and depth of what somebody's looking at when you put a video out there or even a picture, right, it's not worth putting out there. Bottom line, so, and me and my partner hold very fast on that, so, yeah. And we have peers, certain individuals that we bounce stuff off of each other. We share certain things with each other. And if they say no, then it's no. It's not good enough. And it takes a lot of dedication though. People need to understand it takes a lot of dedication.
Exactly. It's not, you weren't just doing, like, you weren't just out for a weekend. Like, this has been 14 plus years leading up to this point, which, I mean, some people listening to this, that's more than half their life or almost their full life. It could be, if I think about it. I'm sure there's some people that are thinking, oh, lowland silverback gorilla aggression call, that's the key. So do you recommend people bust that out, or is that kind of a I did it, but I wouldn't really recommend it for certain reasons deal?
Yeah, don't understand. Get familiar with what it is. Understand what it is that you're doing out there first and foremost. Put some time under your belt. Get comfortable in an area. If you know for a fact that you are dealing with this subject out in the field, put some time under your belt. They need to understand that, in the 3 years to identify and to get to that point of, okay, this is our research area, this is how far in we have to go. People need to understand that in that 3 years, we would only be able to go in so far, and we would get sounds and we would leave, and we would come back, get sounds and leave, and come back over and over. And then eventually we'd be able to go a little farther in and get a little more interaction and leave and come back and leave over and over and over and over again. And then a little farther and a little farther, back and forth, back and forth. That took every bit of 3 years of gaining that, what we think is trust with them.
Okay.
Now, even with that said, now, I mean, we're into it years now, going to this area and researching this area. One particular day, we get triangulated. One's behind us, one's on the ridge to the right, one's on the ridge to the left. and I'm talking aggression. I'm talking pounding and trees bashing. You can hear whatever size branch that they're smacking up against a tree. You can hear it splintering from all three of them, and they were pushing us. And when they would push us, they would maneuver themselves. The one on the right would push farther ahead of us. The one on the left would drop down elevation a little bit, but stay right with us. The one in the back would push forward a little more. Once we started to move, it would lighten up. The knocks would lighten up. The sounds, the growls would lighten up. As soon as we would stop, it would get in. It'd be total aggression again, and they would move. The one behind us would flank to the right or flank to the left a little bit. The one on the left would go back up elevation. The one on the right would drop elevation, and they did this for a mile and a half of pushing us out. And this was years after we had already established with them. And this one particular time, it was, oh, no. Oh, no. So, and then it even got to the point to where we had to make a decision, because the way that they were pushing us, we were getting ready to walk into a huge grove of thickets. And I'm talking 8 feet tall, just nasty, gnarly stuff. And I told my partner, I was like, absolutely not. I'm not going in there. I am not going to lose line of sight. I'm not going to do it. So our only option was to make a hard left, to drop down into the bottom, and then go back up to the ridge on the left where one is. So as we're standing there talking, all of this stuff is happening, and you can hear them maneuvering themselves around us, all around us. And finally, we drop down and go back up. But right as soon as we made the hard left to drop down, in the thickets in front of us, we get the lowest growl, vibrating sound I've ever heard in my life of just pure evil, just nasty. And still to this day, every now and then we'll bring that up with each other, and we'll talk about it a little more, like, what was the intent there? Were they just pushing us and steering us out, completely out, or were they actually trying to get us to go in there? And if they were trying to get us to go in there, what was in there? What would the outcome have been? We'll never know. But it was a learning experience for me as a tracker. It was a learning experience. They told me, they showed me how they maneuver, what they do, their instincts of hunting. If they were to be hunting, they showed me how they move as a team, as a unit, and what they do. So these are things that my partner and I, in our research, this is how our minds work when things like this occur. We're collecting so much. It's not just, oh, wow, I can't believe that happened. That's great. No, we look at it as, okay, what did we learn? What just took place? What did we learn about them in this particular time? So it gave us a lot. It gave us a lot of data on them that day.
It's a really interesting approach to it. Are you and your partner documenting this in any way?
Oh yeah. So we constantly record. We're constantly drop pinning our location on my Garmin. I'm downloading my tracks as we go, things like that. So 2 years ago, my partner went back through everything that we did, all the drop pins that we did, all the Garmin's, all the travel that we've done. And this was like 2 years ago, and he had estimated that we had traveled 5,000 miles from the point of starting our research and recording, our research up to about 2 years ago. We had traveled 5,000 miles in our research. To go back to the original question, I mean, I would not recommend any type of anything to provoke them in any way, give them the respect and honor that from them and understand, what they're wanting, when they give you a chatter and respect that. There's always the next time. There's always the next day. There's always the next weekend. Leave the area. Respect it.
That makes perfect sense for sure. Do you feel like there's ever a time where you've had any type of communication with them?
Well, I don't know. I so um, it's been 2 years now. It was, I believe, May of 22. Um, I wanted to go out and I wanted to do a nighttime in this particular area. Um, I wanted to go completely dark and I wanted to document them through IR and or thermal of where they would travel from. So prior to it getting dark, I get my blind set up. My partner is, I'm where I'm set up. I got my back against the tree. I got my blind in front of me. I'm facing, like, looking up towards the top of the ridge. My partner is to my right, about 5 o'clock to my right, about 20 yards down from me. So right before it gets dark, I show the trackway. I show people, okay, they're going to come from the top of the ridge. They're going to drop down from my left. They're going to drop down midway on the ridge. They're going to make a hard left and they're going to come towards me and the trackway will cut right in front of me, roughly 20 yards in front of me, 25 yards in front of me. So, and I knew that this was roughly the time that it or they would be coming through. So we get set up, everything's set up, we're completely dark, blacked out, and I hear it. I hear him coming, or I hear it coming. Um, Tested all of our gear like we always do prior to going in. Everything was fresh, new batteries, new SD cards, all that jazz. So everything worked. So this thing drops down the ridge, makes a hard left. It's coming towards me. I'm texting my partner. He's coming. It's here. It's here. It's coming. It's coming. It's on top of me. I light everything up. I light all my thermals up, and everything goes off. Everything. My IR scrambles. My screen just pixelates. I get nothing. Everything drops out. 100%. Now this thing is dead smack in front of me. And the only thing that at that time, the only thing then that I could do was just light the area up. That's all I could do. So I hit my lights. I light the area up. There's absolutely nothing standing in front of me. Absolutely nothing. My partner makes his way up to me. I walk out. We walk out. There's his impressions in the ground. I turn around, I track it all the way back to where I first heard it coming off the ridge. I track it all the way back up to the ridge, and I turn around, I track it all the way back down to right in front of me, and there's no exit. There's absolutely no exit point, no tracks, no nothing. It was gone. At that particular time, I believe that I was, this is me. Once again, this is my thought and where I was at in my headspace, that it showed me something that I don't think very many people have ever witnessed. And I think that you need to be, I think you need to be connected in a certain way for this to happen. And I would have never thought that prior to this night. Once again, like prior to my sighting, I thought they were just a grade 8. Up to this point, they were flesh and blood, an animal, and that is it. Nothing else. I was very closed-minded. Um, I didn't, and I hate using the word woo. I despise the word woo. I wish we could figure out another word to say. Um, but I was not there at all. I'd shut you down in a heartbeat over that stuff up to that point. And then I started really researching, getting into the stories of people that have had this happen to them. And in those group of people, there's not many out there. There's not a lot of people out there that have had something like this happen. So I honestly believe that that night I was given something. I really do. Now, it's not talking to me. It wasn't speaking to me or anything like that, but I take that as a form of communication.
That's extremely interesting. Yeah, no, that. It seems, and I'm not as far as you guys are for sure, but the further you get into it, you definitely you start to realize some really interesting things, kind of as you go along. And have you ever had it where you have a recorder and it picks up sounds that you didn't hear live at the time, but you
all the time?
And if it was recorded by the recorder, it's so close that you should have been able to see whatever it was. You saw whatever it was. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had my recorder actually 2 weeks prior to that night that happening. I had my recorder not even 25 feet away from me, and I'm sitting there and I absolutely nothing, heard absolutely nothing. But I left it there, but I know the times, of when I was there during the recordings, you could hear me, getting up and moving away and walking off. So I knew up to the point of me walking off, I'm there. So what I captured on the recorder, though, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it at all. And is it paranormal? Was it a Sasquatch? I don't know. But my recorder picked up an audio. It picked up something that I clearly did not hear. But I've had many. We have had, my partner and I, and even guys that we go out with and bushwhack, guys that research the way that we research and how we go in and do things. We've all had it. We've all had it happen to us. Like how in the heck? Why did we not hear this? How could we not hear this? And when one recorder would pick it up, and another recorder 20 yards away didn't pick it up. How is that possible? 3 recorders would go dead. One recorder would be just fine. It doesn't. Yeah. The more you're right, and the more you get into this, the more you're out there, the more you research, the more open-minded you become, and you have to evolve in your research. You have to evolve as your mind and thinking, and you have to grow with it, and you just have to accept certain things. That's a part of research, and that's a part of being a researcher. You have to look at everything, and that's one thing I beat myself up on now, is why was I so closed-minded all those years? All those years, just being so closed-minded, of no, there's no way. No, there's no way. Why? That's not research. That's not what it's about. So that's where I am now with my research. There's something more to this. There's too many stories out. There's not a lot of people that had what I had happen to me happen to them. There's not many people out there like that, but there's too much. When you go back into history, when you start reading history of encounters, and this happens to them, there's just, you have to look at it. You have to at least look at it.
It's a really interesting thing that you guys have going on there. Feels like, or hopefully, I hope that it continues to progress, and it sounds like you guys are still going out and researching in current day, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. It doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop. How can it stop? When you gather as much as you have, the data that you have, to just walk away, you can't just walk away. You can't just, oh, okay, that's enough. I'm done. You know, let's go find something else. You can't. You can't.
What if Bigfoot was discovered in southeast Oklahoma tomorrow? Would you still continue researching in your area?
Most definitely, I would.
Yeah.
Most definitely, I would. There's always stuff to learn. There will always be things to learn. Just, if it came out tomorrow, here it is. This is it. Da 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 da. It doesn't stop. The research doesn't stop. And that goes back to Jane. Goodall. She found them. She studied. She didn't stop. There was always more to learn. Always more to learn.
Absolutely. Oh, and Eric, it has been a really enjoyable conversation with you. You guys are doing some awesome research out there. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight and for sharing what you guys have
Sure.
accomplished so far. Are there any ways that people can reach out to you if they have things they want to share with you, or how they can keep up to date with what you guys are doing, or if you guys are just kind of in the background, that's fine too,
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Facebook, or, Eric Tipton. I don't go by anything else but my name. So I'm out there. Yeah, if people have questions or whatever, message me. Yeah, and I travel. I've been out on where people have called me and said, "Hey, is there any way that we can meet up, and I've got this going on or this going on." And yeah, I love doing that stuff, and I love talking to people. So most definitely. But yeah, you can find me on Facebook.
Fantastic. Well, Eric, thank you so much for chatting tonight, and we'll have to be in touch with you in the future. And have a great night, sir.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's the list. If you've had any encounters in Oregon, which I'm sure there's probably a few of you out there, please feel free to reach out immediately. You can use email bigfootsociety@gmail.com. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. If you want to join in the fun, you can join over at patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. I'll see you there. And again, thanks for listening.
her and I can get on here and we can tell our stories. Maybe there's somebody else out there listening that's too afraid to tell their story. Maybe this will give them the courage to come out and not feel so bad about it. Who cares what anybody thinks? I know what I saw. I know what's out there. That's all I care about.
Please let people know. Please let them know. If you ever see one of these things, you need to tell. Because if you don't, then shame on you. You know? Shame on you.